96.1 millimeters. That's the lethal dose of rain that transformed Dalian's downtown into an aquatic nightmare in just 60 minutes on September 16, 2025. Streets became rivers. Cars became boats. And in the space of a single morning rush hour, China's northeastern port city discovered that modern urban infrastructure has a breaking point measured in millimeters per minute. 4 people didn't make it home that night. The same city that couldn't handle July's deluge learned absolutely nothing from its own disaster. Welcome to Earth's Dark Secrets. I'm about to expose how a supposedly once-in-a-century storm became a twice-in-3 months reality, and why Dalian's 7 million residents are living in a metropolis that floods faster than it can drain. Monday morning, September 16, 2025. The Dalian Meteorological Observatory issued China's highest-tier red alert for heavy rainfall. By then, it was already too late. The storm had arrived with surgical precision, targeting Dalian's urban core with meteorological violence that shattered every rainfall record since data collection began. Between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., the National Meteorological Station registered 88 millimeters of rain in 60 minutes. But the real killer was the city center, where 96.1 millimeters fell in the same time frame. To put this in perspective, Dalian typically receives about 57 millimeters of rainfall for the entire month of September. On September 16th, the city center received nearly double that amount in 1 hour. Xigang District's Renmin Square became ground zero for an atmospheric assault. Residents filming from apartment windows captured the exact moment their neighborhood transformed from a functioning urban district into a disaster zone. Water doesn't negotiate with concrete. It simply finds the path of least resistance. And in Dalian, that path led straight through residential streets, commercial districts, and major transportation arteries. Port Square, Gorky Road near Taiyuan Street, Zhongshan Road at Huizhan Road. These weren't just street names anymore. They were the coordinates of urban drowning. More than 30 locations across Dalian experienced severe flooding as the city's drainage systems, cities encountered water volumes they were never designed to handle. Emergency responders later confirmed what residents had witnessed. The storm created hydraulic conditions that turned familiar streets into deadly rapids. Pedestrians who had walked these same routes safely for years suddenly found themselves navigating water currents with enough force to sweep away a person. Multiple vehicles stalled in standing water that reached above their wheel wells. Drivers abandoned cars that had become temporary islands, wading through currents to reach higher ground. But the terrifying detail nobody talks about is that many of these vehicles were abandoned not because they stalled, but because drivers realized the water was rising faster than they could navigate to safety. July 1st, 2025. Same city, same infrastructure, same failure. Dalian's Jinpu area experienced flooding that reached calf height, forcing pedestrians and vehicles to wade through waterlogged streets. The July incident should have been a wake-up call, kind of a rehearsal for exactly what happened in September. Instead, it was ignored. Between July and September 2025, Dalian made 0 meaningful infrastructure improvements to address the fundamental vulnerability that both floods exposed. The city's drainage capacity cannot handle concentrated rainfall events that are becoming meteorologically normal. This pattern reveals something municipal authorities don't want residents to understand. Modern Chinese cities are experiencing new normal. Precipitation events that exceed their infrastructure design parameters. What planners call once-in-a-century storms are happening multiple times per year. Dalian's drainage systems were engineered for historical rainfall patterns that no longer exist. The July flooding was a preview. September 16th was confirmation that the preview had become the main event. In 6 hours, Dalian recorded 117 millimeters of precipitation, ranking first nationwide for single-day rainfall. But the raw numbers don't capture the meteorological brutality of how this water was delivered. Weather analysis revealed the storm exhibited characteristics of training cells, multiple thunderstorm systems that moved repeatedly over identical geographic areas. Instead of distributing rainfall across the broader region, the atmospheric system concentrated its moisture payload over Dalian's urban with laser-like precision. This created what meteorologists classify as tropical intensity precipitation, occurring hundreds of kilometers from any tropical weather system. Dalian essentially experienced hurricane-force rainfall without the hurricane. This is a meteorological phenomenon where urban planners never anticipated when designing the city's infrastructure. The storm's intensity broke the fundamental assumption underlying Dalian's drainage engineering, that extreme precipitation events would be brief and geographically dispersed. September 16th delivered sustained, concentrated rainfall that overwhelmed not just drainage capacity, but the basic physics of urban water management. Dalian authorities activated emergency protocols designed for manageable flooding scenarios. What they encountered was systematic urban paralysis. Emergency teams deployed to flood-stricken neighborhoods faced a city where normal evacuation routes had become impassable waterways. Fire brigades and police units found themselves conducting water rescues in areas that had never required amphibious emergency response. The rescue operations revealed critical infrastructure vulnerabilities. Hospitals, fire stations, and emergency command centers remained accessible, but the transportation networks connecting them had been compromised. Emergency vehicles struggled to reach affected areas because the roads they relied on had become temporary rivers. Drainage operations intensified across severely affected roadways, but crews quickly discovered they were attempting to drain a city faster than the storm was filling it. This wasn't a drainage problem, it was actually a capacity problem. Dalian's infrastructure had encountered precipitation volumes that exceeded every engineering assumption about what northeastern China might face. Search and rescue teams continued operations into the night, locating residents trapped in flooded buildings and vehicles stranded in deeper water. The emergency response revealed how quickly urban flooding transforms familiar neighborhoods into dangerous terrain requiring specialized rescue equipment and expertise. What municipal authorities won't publicly acknowledge is that Dalian's September flooding wasn't caused by inadequate drainage maintenance or exceptional weather. It was caused by infrastructure designed for a climate that no longer exists. Urban drainage systems across northeastern China were engineered for historical precipitation patterns. Rainfall averages calculated from decades of data that assumed extreme weather would remain statistically rare and geographically predictable. Climate analysis shows that concentrated high-intensity rainfall events like Dalian experienced in July and September are becoming meteorologically normal across the region. Cities face a fundamental engineering challenge: retrofit infrastructure designed for historical weather patterns to handle precipitation realities that exceed all previous planning parameters. The September 16th disaster exposed what engineers call cascading system failure, where the collapse of drainage capacity triggers transportation paralysis, which compromises emergency response, which delays recovery operations. Modern cities operate as integrated systems, where flooding in one area creates failure propagation throughout the entire urban network. Dalian's double disaster in 2025 reveals something that challenges every assumption about urban resilience. Chinese cities experiencing rapid development have created massive infrastructure vulnerabilities that only become apparent during extreme precipitation events. The pattern is predictable and terrifying: intense rainfall, overwhelmed drainage, transportation paralysis, emergency response complications, and human casualties from events that weren't supposed to happen twice in 1 century, let alone twice in 3 months. Dalian's 7 million residents now understand that their city floods predictably and catastrophically when precipitation exceeds design thresholds that are being exceeded with increasing frequency. 4 deaths, hundreds of rescues, millions of residents trapped in a metropolitan area that has demonstrated twice in 2025 that it cannot handle the atmospheric realities of contemporary climate conditions. The September 16th storm delivered 96.1 millimeters of rain in 60 minutes. But the real disaster was the revelation that Dalian learned nothing from July's preview of exactly this scenario. As precipitation patterns continue evolving beyond historical precedent, cities across China face an uncomfortable reality. How many millimeters per hour does it take to transform your metropolitan area into an aquatic disaster zone, where emergency crews spend hours checking submerged vehicles for survivors? The answer, as Dalian discovered twice in 2025, might be far less than anyone wants to acknowledge. Thanks for watching Earth's Dark Secrets, where we expose the hidden realities behind our planet's most devastating disasters. If this investigation revealed something the mainstream media won't tell you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover the stories that authorities don't want told. Hit the bell so you never miss our in-depth analysis of the disasters that reveal our planet's dark truths.